Hello, everybody. It's Wednesday. It's Wednesday night, and it's time for Food Addiction Reset TV. We are back. This is our fourth episode. We are so excited that you're here. Really, I think that this program could save your life. I'm not exaggerating. You guys know I'm a scientist. I'm a researcher, I'm an educator, but my heart belongs to food addicts. And above all, I would like for food addicts to know that there is one person here on the face of the earth who cares morning, noon, and night about finding food addicts and getting them really great information. So you are going to get some great information tonight. And I think most importantly for people who are joining this broadcast or watching the replay, you know that you are not alone. You are not outside the culture. You are inside this culture. You are embraced here. We care about you so deeply. Honestly, I do. I think about you day and night. I'm always thinking about new ways to help you. I listen to what you tell me on Facebook and by email. I'm just super, super grateful that you're here. So over the course of this program, one very important and very cool thing is going to happen, which your mirror neurons are going to be right at home. Now, mirror neurons, what the heck are they? Mirror neurons are the most powerful pathway in our brain, and they do one thing. They mirror what other people around you are doing. They copy what other people around you are doing. It emulates, it mimics. So if you are around people who are really smart about food addiction, you also will be very smart about food addiction. And if you are around people who are very calmly going about avoiding toxic processed foods, you also will very calmly go about avoiding toxic processed foods. So the time that you spend watching this will be engaging your mirror neurons to say, oh yes, we're among people who know about food addiction. We know about food addiction, and we know what to do about it. We know to avoid triggers. We know to avoid cues. Those are reminders or stimulation in our environment. We know all the ways to keep our brain nice and calm so that we're not triggered into loss of control. And most importantly, we never blame ourselves. We know that food addiction was brought to us by the processed food industry, just like smoking was brought to us by the tobacco industry. So all those hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of cases of lung cancer, well, we didn't ask for that. And those poor victims did not cause it themselves. They were addicted to a really harmful substance that the tobacco industry marketed deceptively. So likewise, as food addicts, we did not ask for this. Nobody ever called us up and got our agreement. So we are allowed to say, this is not my fault. I did not ask for this. And we're also allowed to be really outraged that we have it. But we need to be outraged in a calm way, right? Because we always have to be calm, because when we're agitated, when we're stressed out, when we're angry, that triggers the disease. It triggers the stress pathways in the brain, and then the stress pathways start to interact with the dopamine pathways, and we're sunk. So tonight, you get yet another edition of The Truth. We are going to talk about two media articles, one having to do with weight loss tips. And we all know that weight loss is not the problem. I think by now, probably most people watching this know that food addiction is the problem. And the weight loss will follow as we gain control of the food addiction. So we can put food addiction into remission. We can just keep it from agitating our brains, giving us cravings, washing out the brake system in their frontal lobe. We can do that. Science shows us how to do that. So that's really our goal, which is to put food addiction into remission. So we are going to, first of all, of course, we're going to say that everything we do in here is science-based. I do have a very exciting announcement, which I want to show you what came in my mail today. Here it is, folks. Here is the textbook. Here is the textbook I spent 3 years writing. It's real. It's got lots of pages, 240,000 words, and it's out. So this is very expensive. The hardcover is $125, but the Kindle is $40. So Amazon did a great job of pricing the Kindle to be very affordable. And this is how you know that what I am going to tell you works. Because everything I know, almost, came out of the research for this book. This book has 2,000 citations. 2,000 citations. That means that there is 2,000 bits of evidence for food addiction, for how it affects us, for what it does to our brains, what it does to our personalities, what it does to our relationships, what it does to our finances, and then what to do about it. So it's out. And Julie just posted the link to the Amazon listing. So please, I think for most food addicts, what I really love about this book is that nobody will ever be able to deny you again. Now that processed food addiction, foundations, assessment, and recovery is out, no one will ever be able to say to you again, food addiction does not exist. And nobody will ever be able to confuse you again about whether you have it, because the assessment section, which is the middle third of the book, goes into great, great detail about what this disease looks like in our lives. There are 11 chapters there, and each chapter describes a different aspect of processed food addiction and how it shows up. Hi, Jennifer Gardner from Australia, welcome. So yes, this is out, and do get the Kindle edition. Read it for yourself. It's very readable. So I wrote Processed Food Addiction, Foundations, Assessment, and Recovery to be read by everyone. I didn't use big words. If I had a choice between a big word and a normal word, unlike many academics, I chose the normal word so you can read it and you can understand it. And there are great reviews at Amazon. I'm so grateful to everyone who went to Amazon and wrote a review. And I also, I want you to read it because I want you to see how much science is there. You will be shocked. I think out of all the comments I get, and some people have told me that this is a page turner for them, but the most common comment I get is, I can't believe how much science there is, how much scientific support there is for this disease. And the answer is, well, for 20 years now, we've had brain imaging technology, and researchers have studied by droves. They've studied obesity, they've studied eating disorders, and they've studied drug addiction. So I could find a study that supported almost all the aspects of food addiction, classic aspects of addiction. I could find some kind of study that said, yes, this occurs in obese people or in eating disordered people. And then I could find the corollary in the drug addiction literature. I say, oh, yes, this shows up in drug addiction and it shows up in chronic overeating, which we know to be food addiction. So these researchers, the 2,000 studies in this book, they didn't necessarily know that they were studying food addiction, but I know. So I was able to take their studies and I was able to say, this study is about obesity, but guess what? It describes food addiction. That's what's really going on in this study. And that's just one of the reasons why CRC Press was willing to contract with me to write this book. It's because one of my mentors, Harry Preuss, told them, the evidence is there. Nobody will publish articles, books, anything, unless there's evidence for it. So if I were to come along and say, gee, I have this great idea, I want to write a book about sheer speculation, a really prestigious press like CRC Press, they would never have published it. But I think Harry Preuss had a little bit to say about it. Harry's published a couple of textbooks with them, great, well-reviewed textbooks. So the evidence is there. I am not making this up. And everything I say, if it is speculation, if it's just something I want to talk about, hygiene, I will say I'm speculating. I will tell you. But otherwise, what I come up with comes right out of this book. Now, I chose 2,000 studies to be in this book, but I probably looked at between 8,000 and 6,000 studies to select the ones that were going into the books, the ones that were most pertinent. So the evidence is out there. There are mountains and mountains of it. And believe me, I want you to see my co-authors. So Marianne Marcus is a chaired professor of addictions in nursing at University of Texas. She is revered. She is an expert in addictions and particularly in education. Her degree is in education. Harry Preuss is a 40-year faculty member at Georgetown Medical School. He's a medical doctor. He's the president and the founder of the American College of Nutrition. And I think he's the only faculty at the medical school who is appointed in 4 different departments. He's a genius. Now, Marianne and Harry would never co-edit. They were on my doctoral committee, which is how I know them. I have been working with them now for 14 years. They would never have allowed their names to be put on some kind of bogus book. Why did they agree to co-edit this? It's not because they like me, although I hope they do, because I sure do like them. It's because as we work together on the dissertation, and as we work together on a series of papers and chapters after the dissertation, they could see that there was a lot of research on this. And we're not hanging out there. We are well supported by great research. So hello to Gail and Denise. I'm so glad you guys are here. So check this out, okay? Just even if you go over to Amazon, one thing you can get free at Amazon is you can get the first chapter. So go to the listing, Julie has posted it, and click on the hardcover, click on look inside, and then click on try a sample. And they will send you the first chapter. And the first chapter is a blockbuster. It's about how does drug addiction look like chronic overeating. And I think there are 20 categories. Every important category that describes drug addiction, we see evidence that it's also showing up in chronic overeating. Okay, I'm sorry. I could not resist. The book is out. The book is out. Okay. But now let's get to our topic. Okay, let's get back on track. So tonight, hi, Jocelyn. Glad you're here. Very glad you're here. Please, everybody, I can see your comments on my screen. So if you have a question or if you want to just chime in, go ahead and type it in and I will get to it because I can see them on my screen. Okay, so what are we going to start with? We are going to start with something that just, I don't know why I can even see at this point because I've been rolling my eyeballs so hard. So I found this massive article. I get a lot of my articles from MSN, my newsfeed, and they had an article, 30 weight loss tips. Well, that of course caught my eye because what research shows, and it's described in the textbook, is that weight loss does not work. So weight loss approaches don't work, and you don't keep the weight off, and you don't improve. So when you think about how ridiculous it is to approach food addiction as a weight loss program, all you have to do is think about a beer addict. So suppose somebody was drinking a couple of cases of beer a day. I mean, that person would be really having a hard time. Hi, Marcia Johansson. So suppose that beer addict went to his or her doctor, and the person sat down, hi, Julie, and said, hey, I think I have a problem with something. I seem to drink a lot of beer, and I think it's really a problem for me. And so what if the doctor said, I think you're right, and I think this is a weight loss problem. So let's put you on a restricted calorie diet and come back and see me in 6 months. Well, of course, he didn't take the beer out. He didn't take the alcohol out. So the person is going to remain consumed with cravings and continue to drink beer and not make any progress at all with that weight loss program because it was an addiction causing the overconsumption of calories. It was an addiction. It wasn't a weight loss problem at all. So immediately when I see an article about weight loss tips, all the red flags go up. And I just like, okay. I know food addicts all over the world are going to be reading this article. MSN is a major news outlet. They're going to be reading this article and they're going to think, oh, if I just do this, oh, if I just do that, oh, and I have 30 of them to work on. Well, 30 different things to do. I'm sure I'll be successful this time. Well, I have to tell you, I went through all 30 weight loss tips very carefully, and I found 2 that would work to help with food addiction. Except they're little tiny parts of the whole big comprehensive program that we need. We need a comprehensive program. So tonight, I'm just going to go through 2 types of weight loss tips. And I think the other thing that's so remarkable, okay, we're 25 years into the obesity epidemic. The weight loss tips don't change. They're still ineffectual, but that doesn't stop these writers from continuing to put them out and continuing to try to pull us off track. So this is, of course, against a background of knowing that media, including MSN, depends on processed food for advertising revenues. So they are never going to really tell us how to get off processed foods. Why would they? Okay, so the first tip, quote unquote tip, is to eliminate a particular food or drink. Okay, come on. When you go into the grocery store, you get exposed to tens of thousands of grocery store items. There is a particular grocery store outside of Cincinnati. I'm not going to name it. I do not want you to go there. But it is huge, and it's just a grocery store. It's not one of these stores where they're also selling lawnmowers, etc. This is an enormous, ginormous grocery store. So they had a grand opening. I went with my elderly parents. They had a great time. And I went into the office just out of curiosity, and I asked, how many items are in this grocery store? Hi, Bonnie. And the person actually knew. She said about 800,000 different items. Now, I can tell you, without even going through the grocery store, that the number of items that were non-addictive and edible would have been about 1,000. So 99% of the items in a grocery store are not edible for a food addict. Okay, and I agree. It includes the mops, obviously not edible. But it includes everything up and down the aisles except for beans and rice and spices and cold-pressed oils. So when somebody comes along and says, oh, just eliminate this, you just have to groan. I say groan, sigh, because that's ridiculous. It's like saying to an alcoholic, okay, well, maybe there are 40,000 different kinds of alcohol out there, but you just have to eliminate this one, and you'll be okay. So it's like saying to that alcoholic, well, just eliminate the hard stuff, but you can still have beer, and you can still have cocaine, and it's okay if you still smoke. Like, not. That is not going to solve the problem. You need to get off the entire class of addictive substances. And as my beloved Kay Shepherd says, cocaine is not on the food plan. So it's not like you're going to get off of sugar and flour and processed fats and dairy and caffeine and excessive salt and all the packaged foods and just get on to cocaine. No, that's not the idea. It's not the idea, I promise. But that is what this article went through. And out of those 30 tips, I'll bet maybe 3 or 4 were just eliminate this one food. So, or eliminate this one drink. Now, that is a weight loss tip which will not work. And the thing that really bothers me about an article like this is it sets us up for the next failure. So suppose somebody got a hold of this article and they really studied it and they said, okay, it said to eliminate this and eliminate that and eliminate the other thing. Okay, I'm going to do that. And oh man, am I going to lose weight? I know I am because this is coming right out of MSN. And of course, that won't work. And now the person feels like a failure. And that terrible sense of failure drives them into their next episode of overeating. So that is what breaks my heart. That is what hurts my heart about these kinds of articles. Now, the next category of really ridiculous ideas is to add a single food or use some kind of bizarre extract or use a particular supplement. So just to say, like, how ridiculous this kind of advice is that suppose you were a smoker and someone came along and just said, oh, well, just add in some clean air. Just put some clean in there. Just breathe clean air. So just adding something is not going to help. Or, you know, a smoker, just take this, whatever, vitamin or mineral, and you'll be okay. You'll be okay. That's all you have to do. Just take it and then you'll be okay. Well, we are so attracted to those kinds of delusions. That smoker, of course, that smoker would say, really? Okay, great. I won't get cancer. I won't get emphysema. I'll just take the supplement and then I can keep on smoking. So this is some of the worst deception, some of the worst. False hope, misleading, down the wrong path. And of course, we food addicts know that if you actually took that supplement, it would not help. It wouldn't help. I'm very tempted to name the extract that they swore would take the pounds right off, because I don't want to delude you. But it's so funny. It's so funny. All right, I'm going to tell you. So this article said to use an extract of spinach. And an extract of spinach would mean that those pounds would just melt away. Hi, Ricky. So you can see how bizarre and how worthless and how misleading this is. And of course, the other terrible thing is that as somebody followed this advice, they're losing time. We know that food addiction gets worse over time. And while they're sorting out that this is yet another round of weight loss tips that will not work, they're losing time. They could have gone into an expert online program like the HARP and gained some traction, got some satisfaction, got a tremendous amount of relief. But instead, they're pulled off other things that might work. But here at Food Addiction Reset, we know better. Okay, so I guess if you guys would like, we have such a good audience. If you would like, you are welcome to make comments. Like if you've ever been pulled off great food addiction recovery by a weight loss scheme or by a weight loss tip, go ahead and put it in, and I will read it. Now, I do have a second article. So I guess before I move on, I do want to say, if you ever see an article that has weight loss tips in it, run. Just run. Close the magazine, close the book, flip to another page on your computer, but do not get caught up. Do not get, it's like falling into a thorn patch. You just will get stuck there. Jennifer says, that makes so much sense. How can any food such as spinach be dried and powdered down to have any possible health effects? Right, well, it's not going to get you to lose weight. It's not going to stop the food addiction. You have to get abstinent, get in the right group, get the right education, get the right support, and have a good time doing it. Have fun doing it so that you're relaxed. Jennifer, that's brilliant. Thank you so much. Okay. Now, I have another article that also just quietly drove me crazy. As I said, normally I don't stop and read these articles, but because I'm really getting that we catch food addiction, okay, from our families of origin, from availability, repeatedly eating foods that we didn't know were addictive. But we also get it from media because we get these distorted things everywhere. So I saw this article about the countries with the greatest longevity. First of all, I want to stop and I want to read Diana's comment. Hi, a lot of articles indicate there's no consensus in the science for food addiction. If you found 2,000, that sounds like consensus to me. Yes. Okay, I'm going to stop because I love this topic. How do we know? How do we know? And I will tell you that when I recruited Marianne Marcus to be on my doctoral committee, she said, you may end up not liking me because I don't think food addiction can exist. And I will be your hardest skeptic. I can practically quote, I can see myself sitting in her office, trembling. Will she join my committee? She's such a legend. And I said, Marianne, that is exactly the doctoral committee member I need. And okay, we talked and talked. We talked and talked for 3 years of that whole program. And we finally settled on a dissertation project that would take the diagnostic criteria for drug addiction and see how they worked for chronic overeating. So we had a pretty small sample, 64 people, but we got some good data. And I remember standing in the statistician's office at the University of Texas and watching the first results come out and realizing that those drug addiction criteria apply perfectly to chronic overeating. So we wrote up the dissertation, we analyzed the data, and eventually we published the first description of what we called at that time refined food addiction in the academic press. And it's been pretty widely cited. That article has been. And God bless her. I went back to Marianne and I said, so do you think we demonstrated that food addiction exists? And she said, yes, I believe food addiction exists. And I also said to her, well, so now that we know it exists, what do we do about it? And she said, there are only three things you can do: educate, educate, and educate. And so that's what we do. We educate. Okay, so that was, when you can persuade over somebody like Marianne Marcus, you know it's real. I needed that from her. I needed to be able to look at her and have her say yes, because she's so much wiser and more educated than I am. So Diana, that's a very astute comment. There is so much evidence. To me, I hope that the textbook puts an end to the debate. It won't. People love debating things. But nobody can say that the evidence doesn't exist. And nobody can say, oh, this is just an eating disorder. Oh, no. This is what's called a substance use disorder. There is a substance involved. And in this case, there are thousands of substances involved if you include food additives that we don't even know about. So we know the broad categories. We know sugars and sweeteners. We need flour and gluten, excessive salt, processed fat, dairy, and caffeine, and then that broad, unknown, mysterious category called food additives. So yeah, we're lucky in here. I mean, we're just way past does this exist. We're like way on to recovery, way on to leading happy lives, way on to putting this in our past and enjoying our present. Okay, so let's get to this article about the countries with the people with the greatest longevity. What does that mean? That means people who live the longest, people who routinely live into their late 80s and 90s and even into their hundreds. So which countries have the longest lifespans and why? Okay, let's give a little background to this. Okay, we know from the statistics and from what the World Health Organization tells us that diet-related diseases have now taken over tobacco as the leading preventable cause of death. So, and I know that they're not including all the causes of death that are probably related to diet, things like accidents, they probably don't get that that's related to diet. They're probably just picking off the most obvious things like heart disease, diabetes, stroke, increasingly Alzheimer's and dementia, and now cancer. Some people think that cancer is related to diet, and the evidence is growing. We talked about a great study last week showing that people who ate more processed foods were more likely to get cancer. So if you really looked at all the diet-related causes of death, including accidents, including even things like suicide, the number, of course, would be much greater. So we know that. We've got that. That's in every article about leading causes of deaths, mortality. We know that. We know it's processed foods. We know it's diet-related diseases. But what did this article say that longevity was due to? Oh my goodness. Okay, so first of all, they don't mention processed foods once. They do not mention processed foods once in the article. And of course, they don't mention food addiction. So what they do mention occasionally is that a country will have a diet that's higher in fish. So this goes back to the insanity is if you just eat more fish, you will be okay. No, that's just like, if that alcoholic just drinks more water, he'll be okay, she'll be okay. No, you have to get abstinent and follow a program of recovery and surround yourself with wise people. Okay, so here's what this article said longevity is due to. Healthcare and economic growth. Okay, I agree. Poverty is a killer. If you don't have enough food or you don't have any access to medical care and you have infections and so on that you can't get treated, that will definitely have an impact on longevity. But here we are, the United States is the country with the highest economic growth. It did not make the top 25 countries in terms of longevity. So the idea that somehow longevity would be associated with economic growth, it's just kind of bogus. It makes me think about the tobacco companies trying to say that lung problems were due to inner city crowding. No, they're just trying to get us to look away from the real problem. Okay, healthcare. I mean, no, come on. We have a lot of healthcare in this country, in the United States, and we do not have long lives. Okay, so our lives, actually, as we get more and more healthcare in the United States, our life expectancy is going down. So we know that that's not in it. Janice, hi, everybody. Hi, Janice. Hi, Janice. So glad you're here. Okay, so the article mentions education as a source of longer life. Even though the U.S. has one of the highest education levels, our lifespan is shortening. We're educating more people and we're living less long, shorter lives. Water quality. Now, water quality is a big issue around the world, but we have great water quality typically around the United States, and we live shorter lives. All of the countries that were mentioned, like Sweden, like Norway, like Denmark, like Finland, are countries that don't eat a lot of processed foods. So that's not mentioned once in the article. So if you read this article, you might be led to believe that as long as you have a work-life balance, you have access to healthcare, you take naps, drink clean water, and are educated. That's another thing they said. One of the countries takes a lot of naps. Okay, food addicts take a lot of naps. It's because we're passing out from overeating. We've done some blackout eating, and now we need to lie down and pass out. So it's just, the whole article is so ridiculous. But here we go again. The point of this article, the thing that's so sad and so outrageous, is that somebody might read this and just think, okay, well, if I signed up for a better health insurance program, I will live longer. If I eat more fish, I will live longer. If I take naps, I will live longer. And none of that is going to help a food addict. So again, we see these articles and it's so easy to believe them. They're published prestigiously. And then to just think, well, maybe processed foods is not really the problem. And to be pulled off your programs. Okay, so that's my second article for this edition of Hidden in Plain Sight. I would like to stop and tell people who've joined late or people who are just skipping to this part of the recording who we are and what we do. I am Joan Ifland. I am a PhD in addictive nutrition. I'm an MBA. I have an MBA from Stanford University, and my undergraduate degree is from Oberlin College in economics and political science. I switched careers entirely to processed food addiction in 1996 when I started my own recovery. I am a recovering food addict. I do not have continuous abstinence for 22 years. I want to share that. I have had my problems, just like most food addicts, and I've bounced back. I am, as I said before, I'm going to get it out again. I am the lead editor and lead writer of this textbook, which is now out, Processed Food Addiction. And some people have told me that as the lead editor, I wrote 2/3 of the book. I could now be considered to be the leading expert in the world in food addiction. And if that is the case, I'm just humbled by it. It is an incredible honor to be able to have spent the last 22 years of my life reading, writing, listening, and to have finally realized what the problem is. And the problem is our environment. It's not inside of us, it is outside of us. And how do I know this? Because as we get into one session after another of the Home Addiction Reset program, I see people just naturally and easily doing things that they have wanted to do for a long time but couldn't. And it's because the Home Addiction Reset program, the HARP, creates an environment with online video chats twice a day for 2 hours, and then a full hour phone call in the evening. So I am the lead editor of the textbook. It's the only textbook on food addiction recovery out there. And I am the creator of the Home Addiction Reset program. And I'm also the creator of the ongoing community, which is the Addiction Reset community. And you are on that business's website, Facebook page right now. So where can you learn more about what we do? You can go to processedfoodaddiction.com, and there are links to free materials, and there are links to free self-quizzes so that you can find out for yourself if you have food addiction. You can also take a self-quiz to find out what you might get from recovery. What would your personal benefits be? Why would this might be worth it to you? Maybe it's not worth it to lose the weight anymore, because now, of course, the food industry and the diet industry, everybody is saying, well, you can be healthy and be overweight. So people are gradually coming off of the idea that they have to be a certain weight in order to be healthy. That is completely not true. You can be very healthy at any weight, and you can be very unhealthy at any weight. We now know weight does not drive health status. Okay, so that's a really good thing to know. So it really, as a result of reading for 3 years and writing the textbook, I now know that we have a really serious addiction. This is not just smoking, and smoking is hard enough to give up, but to give up processed foods is a much more difficult journey. And it really does take a comprehensive program. So these little, like a little tip here, a little tip there, take a nap. Are you kidding? Would you say that to a cocaine addict? Or just start taking naps? No. So here for this program is Hidden in Plain Sight, food addiction. And it is specifically about how media is egging us on, so to speak. How media is encouraging us to stay addicted through really deceptive materials, really misleading materials, really delusional materials. And we do have a newsletter that goes with this. So you can opt in and subscribe to the newsletter, and it will come to your email address. And that is another way to get this material. So if you're wondering, I would like to be able to read what Dr. Ifland is talking about, you can get this by email in our newsletter. Okay. Now, in our last section of the program, thank you, Julie, for putting up the links. We're going to talk about research that media does not report on. So I love the comment, Diana's comment about, wow, 2,000 studies. How come we don't know about these? Surely that represents consensus. Yeah, we don't know about this science because, of course, media does not report on the science that would actually help us break free and stop buying processed foods. So here we go. Now, this is an article about how effective online groups are for weight loss. This was not covered in the US media. This was not covered in the US media. So finally, there's an effective way to gain control of your food, I understand why it has to be online. This is why I created Home Addiction Reset Program online. I did not go out and rent a building. I did not want people to travel. People can't travel. A lot of us cannot travel. We have responsibilities at home. So I knew from reading those thousands of research reports that online was the way to go. It means that you can get on in a snap. You don't have to get dressed. You don't have to get in your car. You don't have to even leave your kids. You can play it in the background of your home, just like you would play TV in the background. You can play it in the background like you would listen to the radio. So you can let these programs just permeate very gently and respectfully permeate your households. And people in your household will begin to see, oh, this is really important. Oh, this is really interesting. They don't even know they're listening to it. So this is what I love about this TV program is we are fighting the food industry on their battlefield and winning. So food industry uses television to just reach our subconscious and pull us in to processed food addiction. And here, because we have our own TV program, we are fighting them tooth and nail, and we are winning. Because people are telling me that when they have their heart programming on in the background of their homes, their family members are coming around a lot faster than I have ever seen before. More interest. What are you eating? Well, I like that. Could I have some of that? More willingness to stop buying the bad stuff. So this is pretty cool. This is pretty cool. And it's not a fight. So I never want a food addict to be in a fight with anybody. It's stressful, and that will trigger the disease. So we're smart about stress being the core factor in why we relapse. So this is very, very cool stuff. Okay, so this article was published. The study was conducted in the UK, and it was reported on by a UK paper. And I think, again, this is crucial. UK is much better about reporting things that would actually help. I think they're just that those papers are not beholden to the processed food industry the way the US media outlets are. So, Jocelyn, yes, we are. Oh, Jocelyn! Jocelyn must be from the UK. Jocelyn, are you from the UK? We have a UK member here? Oh, I hope so. Jocelyn, I'm coming to London. I'm coming to London on the 16th. I'm staying for 10 days. I'm going to organize a meetup somewhere, somehow in London, and I hope you can come. Yay. Because now that we have 2 video chats, we reach the UK now. Our video chats are at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and 9 o'clock in the evening in the UK. So now I can say we have enough coverage in the UK to be effective. Live coverage. Me in a video chat, leading a peer-led group. So yeah, we're reaching the UK. Very, very exciting. Okay, so this is what I'm going to just read the first paragraph of my newsletter here because I actually thought this through. This article reports that online support groups are effective for weight loss, and more importantly, for maintaining a weight loss. Okay, so sometimes we can lose weight, but the problem is we gain it back. So what this article said is that they did follow up after a year, and people had maintained a weight loss. Crucial, crucial. Doesn't make any difference what you can do. Like you can do a lot of really horrible things and just lose the weight, but it will come right back. So this is crucial that the online support group was able to maintain the weight loss. Other research has shown that all weight loss schemes fail eventually. And I cannot say that often enough. I want everybody to know that when you regain the weight, it is not your fault. All weight loss programs fail. Now, one obvious reason for the failure of these programs is that the food stimulation in Western cultures is so intense that unless we have an alternative culture The mainstream food stimulation will eventually pull us right back into fattening, addictive processed foods. Okay, so this goes right back to our mirror neurons, the most powerful pathway in the brain. That is the pathway that says you shall mimic what the people around you are doing. You shall copy what the people around you are doing. You shall emulate what the people around you are doing. You shall mirror, just like a mime would mirror somebody else. Our mirror neurons direct us, guide us, lead us, pull us in the direction of what the people around us are doing. That is the key to everything. So, of course, what this article is doing by giving people an online presence, like right now, because you're watching me, your mirror neurons are saying, what is she doing? What is she doing? We should be doing that. We should be copying that. We should be mimicking what she's doing. Mirror neurons are helpless. They are programmed to get you to do what the person you're watching is doing. So this online program is easy enough that people can access it enough that their mirror neurons can give enough direction to the person to keep them safe, to keep them from relapsing, to keep them from binging on processed foods. That is the key. That is the alternative culture. Because if your mirror neurons don't have that, if you don't have an online tribe, what is left? What's left? Well, maybe television, eating disordered actors and actresses who are going to blow up later in life because they just didn't get enough food during their careers. They were forced into weight loss schemes or, not enough fat on their body schemes, and they pay for it later in life because they just blow up and they can't lose the weight anymore. Maybe if they joined the HARP, they could lose the weight. So your mirror neurons are left with television, watching eating disordered people, or maybe your mirror neurons are left with your colleagues at work who are bringing in all kinds of junk food and eating it. Or maybe your mirror neurons are left with the people on the street who are driving into fast food places. That is, so if that's what your mirror neurons are seeing, that is why you are doing those things. It's not because you lack willpower. And it is not because of your childhood issues. And it is not because you're an emotional eater. I mean, can you imagine saying to a cocaine addict, are you an emotional snorter? No, it's not because of any of those things. It's because your mirror neurons are copying, they're mimicking what you are seeing in your culture. So what this study did was it created an alternative culture. There were nurses, in this particular case, there were nurses online with these people, and they had enough exposure, not nearly as much as we give in the HARP, which is now I know why the HARP is so effective, but they did have their mirror neurons engaged with an authority figure, a nurse, helping them to stick to their food plans. Okay, now this was a good study. So they had other ways of doing it. They had face-to-face meetings, and then they had people who were working on their own. And the face-to-face meetings by far produced better results. So this is very consistent with the mirror neuron theory. The programs were delivered online. So the thing about delivering programs online is then you can do so very inexpensively. You don't have to maintain a physical plant. You don't have to maintain a building. You don't have to build a building. You don't have to clean it and to hire janitors and construction people, and you don't have to maintain a facility. And therefore, and like in the HARP, our HARP program is not expensive at all because I can work with, we're up to 86 people in the ARC, 50 people in the HARP. And they're all, I know them all, and I can follow everybody. And people can show up on the video chats and be face-to-face with me. That's why it works. That's why it works. This is very groundbreaking, very new, and very exciting. Okay, so I'm just so excited everybody was here. We need to wrap up. I am Joan Ifland. I am the author and editor of the textbook, Processed Food Addiction, Foundations, Assessment, and Recovery. And I am here to really help you understand that listening to media, watching media, no matter what the programming, is making your food addiction worse. Tonight, we talked about two kinds of weight loss tips that make food addiction worse. One tip is just eat this food. And the other tip is just don't eat that food. And we know that those are not going to work for weight loss because there's just a drop in an ocean of processed food patterns and routines that need to be gently altered, tweaked until we're in a safe place. And then we talked about the longevity article. And again, if you want the links to these, do sign up for our newsletter, because even though I'm trying to be clever here, I say, please skip this misleading article here. So yes, you can click through to the link, but I'm really asking you not to read these articles. They're very deceptive. So we read an article about why countries have longevity. They want you to believe it's their healthcare system, their education levels, even that they take naps. None of it. So none of it. It's just because they don't have processed food addiction, because their media is not allowed to prey on the populations. They're not allowed to have fast food outlets every 10 feet. They're not allowed to stimulate small children through cartoons and commercials. That's why they have longer lives. So that was our second discussion. And our third discussion was about an article that U.S. media did not report on, which was an article about how effective an online weight loss program was, where the people had face-to-face contact with a nurse. It was very inexpensive to deliver, a great solution. And of course, media in the US does not report on it. Okay. I am just so thrilled to have been here tonight with you all. Wednesday night is a very special night in my life because I get to be here and record this TV program live on Facebook. I do want to recognize Julie Bennett for supporting the broadcast tonight. Sheila normally would support this broadcast, and she is not available. And we also really have to thank Julie, because she takes these broadcasts and turns them into permanent videos. So we have a building archive of really nicely done videos, because Julie is the wizard, the queen of video production. So thank you, Julie. And I do also want to recognize our incredible consultant, Excel Katz, who's brought us to this point. And I want to recognize every member of the HARP, every member of the ARC, every member of our Food Addiction Education Facebook group, all 11,400 of you guys, because you teach me every day. And I hope that I'm giving back to you something that's worthwhile, something that will help you escape this terrible disease. So good night, goodbye, everybody. I will see you next week, same time, same place, and I look forward to it already. Take care, everybody.